Let's now cross live to Adam Scott Bellos. He's the founder and CEO of the Israeli Innovation Fund, joining us from Tel Aviv. Adam, thanks. First of all, let me pass on from everyone here at RT our sincere condolences on the lives lost in this war. And thanks for joining us here at RT. Now, your organization has provided full support for the Israeli army. As awful and heinous as those initial Hamas attacks were, how do you feel about when you see these the number of civilian casualties in Gaza?
How do I feel?
Sure.
I mean, I don't think there's one. I don't think there's one. First of all, thank you for having me, and thank you for your condolences. I don't think there's any Israeli that enjoys seeing any civilian of any population being harmed in any shape or form. But I believe the number that you guys threw out there were 3,000 Palestinian civilians in Gaza. Let's just, reiterate right now that it's been proven that the hospital that was destroyed and 500 people were killed, that was Hamas. So that's a very significant amount of that 3,000. Okay. The border has been blocked to Egypt so that people could not get out. Hamas put trucks in the way to prevent women and children from getting out. In my opinion, personally, and I think I can speak for many Israelis, the only people that the Palestinians have to blame for this situation is Hamas. They broke into Israel, slaughtered more than 1,500 people, beheaded 40 babies, took the elderly and whole families hostage, and raped young women next to the dead bodies of their friends in the south at the party that they completely shot up and killed 250 people of the 800 people that were there. So while I do feel greatly for the pain and the suffering of many Palestinians, that's not really the Israeli people's focus at this time. The Israeli people's focus at this time is to completely and utterly eliminate this threat, which has now become a multi-front war, both on the Gaza border and in the border with Lebanon. So I don't really understand the obsession with talking about moral clarity or how do you say, comparing and contrasting what a proportionate response is. I'm actually very confused as to what a proportionate response to 1,500 people dead and shot in the street, homes broken into and shot up, women and children taken hostage, 40 babies being beheaded, and raping over 100 women. So, I mean, like, if anybody wants to tell me what the moral equivalency to that is or what an actual reasonable response to that is, I'd be more than happy to listen.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have an answer for you there, I'm afraid. Let's change the gears slightly here. Now, one of the stated goals of your organization is to reignite the Zionist spirit in the 21st century. What do you mean by that, sir? And what is your message to those Jewish people who denounce Zionism?
I don't consider them Jews. I mean, anybody that understands the Jewish narrative and looking at the lens of history through a 3,000-year Jewish people's history, one cannot denounce Zionism. I would assume, actually, I'll go out on a limb and say I absolutely believe that the majority of, if not 99.9% of the anti-Zionists out there who are Jewish are either from anti-Zionist, ultra-Orthodox sects of the Jewish population that were mostly slaughtered from the Holocaust and have a very radical interpretation of history and religious practice that is on the fringe of the Jewish community not accepted as part of the mainstream. I would say that the secular people that are part of, like, the groups that stormed Washington the other day, who replaced the term Yerushalayim for Al-Quds, have no connection to Jewish philosophy, Jewish civilization, Jewish history, or Jewish culture in any way, shape, or form. They are familiar with very watered-down versions of interpretations of religious and philosophical concepts that have been explained to a 21st century palate and mindset that maybe agrees with their progressive values, but has nothing to do with the actual interpretation of our ancient philosophy's teachings, way of life, and practices. And in terms of answering the question of what it is to reignite the Zionist movement or the Zionist spirit, is that over 100 years ago, the Zionist movement was formed. It was more about building Hebrew culture and returning to the idea which Theodore Herzl had wrote in The Jewish State, where we had been reduced to nothing but the faith of our fathers. becoming sovereign versus being stateless, no longer being in exile, having our own army, being able to defend ourselves, and having self-determination. So the goal of my organization is to create cultural projects that draw someone closer to Israel and the Jewish people outside of normal religious or philosophical or political philosophy, so to speak.
Right. Now we know what that's about. Now we appreciate that. Okay. I have one more question, sir, before my director cuts me off. Let's go back to the conflict. Now, I want to talk about the war, whichever way you want to talk about it. Now, for years, the Israeli government has been taking quite a hard-line approach to the Palestinians, whether it be in Gaza or the West Bank or quote-unquote occupied West Bank, either way. But we've now seen, I mean, this has not led to any sort of resolution. This hard-line approach, it doesn't really solve anything.
Can you define what you mean by hard line, please?
Aggressive reclaiming of land, reclaiming of properties, deciding when
in terms of the Gaza
evictions.
Strip, or in terms of Judea, Samaria,
well,
in terms of the Gaza Strip, or Judea, Samaria, West Bank. Because
Bank.
no homes have been reclaimed. No homes have been reclaimed in the Gaza Strip. We actually left the Gaza Strip in 2005. So you know, I mean, there is
the tensions
on the ground.
Sir, but the tensions are, Adam. The tensions are hard and they're tough, and we've constantly seen this spurts every year, if not spurts of aggression happen between Palestinians and Israel, and things aren't changing. What needs to change, sir?
Well, I believe everything just changed on October 7th. So to be completely honest, 60% of the West Bank is uninhabited, Judea, Samaria. In my opinion, I don't understand why Jews are not able to live in the actual hills and area where they derive their name from: Yehudi, Yehuda, Judea, Jewish, Jew. So I don't really believe that this is occupied territory. Is it disputed territory under international law? Yes, international law with a lowercase I, not an uppercase I. I mean, like, it's very easy to disprove the entire occupied territory argument, but it's quite impossible to make peace with somebody that does not come to the negotiating table. If you look at
Adam,
what,
just so I've got 30 seconds. My director's in my ear. 30 seconds. I don't want to cut you off. One more sentence, please, sir.
No problem. It's impossible to make peace with people who do not come to the negotiating table, or who want to make peace, or who continually radicalize their next generation younglings by giving them textbooks teaching them, if you kill one Jew and then you kill two Jews over here, how many dead Jews are there? So yeah. I don't really understand how you can create peace with the radicalized population. And by the way, it is child abuse in every sense of the word. And I could say for everybody here in Israel that we very much do want to make peace with the Palestinians. We do very much care about civilian casualties, but at the same time, there is something called preferential love, and we will take our own people's safety into account before anything else.
Adam Scott Bellos,
no problem.
Founder and CEO of Israeli Innovation Fund. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.